Hi, this is Scott Garibay. Today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about how we depict science in Dungeons & Dragons. And the reason why is, as I look at it, I think we have some major problems with how we depict science in Dungeons & Dragons that we need to fix. And I just want to kind of like draw the picture, draw the frame of the problem today. All right, so the reason why we're talking about this is, first of all, I have a new news source. It's USA Today. It has replaced the New York Times Audio Digest. I desperately miss that product, but the USA Today news feed has 1 to 2 minute short stories that they kick out all day, and then at the beginning of the day, I just go over to Google Podcasts. I queue up any of the stories I want to listen to, which is usually about half of what they published. And I get this great summary of the news from the United States, which is absolutely fantastic. And they did a story on May 6th, 2022, and they said that the investigation on a man who, so last year there was a science first, okay? They put a pig heart in a human man, right? And then he quickly died. All right. Now, condolences to his family. He's a human being. We care about him. He's important, right? My condolences to him and his family, right? But I want to talk about the science today, and I want to talk about how we depict science in Dungeons and Dragons in the light of what we're seeing right now. So, what happened? It sounds like a bad science fiction novel, right? Like, you're like, okay, you took a human being and you put a pig heart in them and they died. Duh. Like, is this even science? Right? Like, because, like, did anyone need to tell you that putting parts of an animal into a human could go wrong? Like, I felt like, did you guys miss the memo of what happened with March 2020? Like, is science even aware of these shockingly obvious major trends that are happening today? Right? Like, this was a bad idea. This was a bad idea from the start. Like, this should have never happened. And guess what they found in the investigation? Put a pig heart in a human person and they will get a pig virus. Duh! Like, did you need science to know this? Right? To know that this was a catastrophically bad idea? Right? And is science aware of obvious things, right? And so we are really struggling as human beings today to trust or value our scientific community, because from the outside looking in, it looks like they're not, like, they're trying to do hard, high-end science, but ignoring massively obvious things, right? Like, so, it's a bad idea to put animal parts in humans. This is just a fundamentally bad idea, right? This has been warned about since March 2020. There's been an innumerable number of facts that have come forward to say this was an absolutely catastrophically bad idea. This has been warned about in myth for millennia, right? Like, saying this is not a good idea, right? Like, it's like Frankenstein was never even written, right? Not the Frankenstein of, like, making of course putting let me make this clear. Putting an animal part in a human doesn't make them a monster. What I'm saying is the entire point of Frankenstein is, yes, you can do this. Did you ask if you should do this, right? And it's very clear the scientific community in America is not asking this question, right? Like, it's just blazing past it and blazing past obvious evidence that's saying this is not going to work, right? Like, and the ramifications of it are massively clear before this experiment is even done, right? So we have huge problems in America, and increasingly Americans are distrustful and devalue the scientific community. Now, is that because the American people are stupid? No, I don't think so. I think here's the thing. I cannot stress this enough. The thing is no longer the thing. The thing is the thing and the meta, right? So you did great science, right? Who cares? If you don't have the ability to communicate what you did to the common American with simplicity and elegance, and make sure they value what you're doing, then everything you're doing is worth nothing. Nothing. So, if you are a scientist, do your science, but do not neglect the part where you need to communicate simply, concisely what you have done. You need to answer questions, you need to address fear, and you need to show your value. Right now, I think the vast majority of American scientists are not explaining what they're doing, right? And they are taking for granted that Americans see their value, right? And that should not be taken for granted, right? So we have this American problem. How do we address this in American Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I'll tell you, I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't have the answer in this video. What we have to do first is identify the problems. Right now, I think the problem in Dungeons and Dragons is we do not deal with science, right? We say magic is here, who gives two figs for science? But the reality is there are scientists in our Dungeons and Dragons worlds, people who are rejecting supernatural solutions and saying, I can create an actual mundane solution to this problem, right? But we ignore them and we never really talk about them. Because we're tier 1 dungeon masters listening to this content, we need to fix this. We need to think about how we proceed carefully and start to bring forward scientists in our Dungeons and Dragons games who persist even when magic can do a lot of what they are. So I guess I do have a solution. We need to put forward scientists in our games, right, who do not use magic in any way, but use scientific methods to actually bring mundane solutions to the world's problems, even as magic is outpacing them, right? And give those player characters a chance to give those player characters a chance to inspire Americans to see the value in science again. It's our responsibility as dungeon masters. There's this real world problem. As always, dungeon masters are the right people to solve it. The right way to solve the horrible science problem of America is for dungeon masters to put player characters in their games that actually depict science in the way it should function. World problem, we fix it, dungeon masters. Because the reality is, the fate of the human race rests on our shoulders and no one else. And if you think I'm wrong, take a look at your president right now. You think that guy's going to fix anything? Does it seem ludicrous that a dungeon master would do better than he's doing now? It's hard to imagine anybody could do worse than he's doing. The only thing that is being reported in the list is how long the list of catastrophically bad things that he's doing. So if you think that I'm really out here for thinking dungeon masters can save the world, I think you're a fool for thinking politicians can do it. We have to, because we're all that's left. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.